morning. So what we have here in front of us today, being as that it is May, is Sweetspire plant. I had not really paid a lot of attention to Sweetspire, but this year it's really impressing me. It's a beautiful little plant that's growing sort of shrub-like here on the side of our driveway in our front yard, and I've just been really enjoying it. I've noticed that it has this wonderful aroma coming off of it that's kind of citrusy, kind of sweet, kind of like clean laundry. Really very nice. This is Itea virginica, and it is just a wonderful little plant. I realize that now that I'm studying it, I've been smelling these flowers in the breeze, in the wind, ever since my childhood. I just didn't know where that beautiful scent was coming from. It's kind of neat that depending on the time of year, Sweetspire or gardenia, honeysuckle or hyacinth can be blowing through the air. You basically create memories based on these aromas without even really knowing what they are. So now that I'm turning around and learning about it, it's connecting dots for me. It's really a very cool plant, and it seems to be enjoying itself here. As you can tell, it sure does want to proliferate, or it just wants to grow and grow. I learned that this plant uses a technique that's been referred to as suckering. And suckering is when a plant can basically create an entire new root system from buds on the branches. I imagine this right here, if you see sort of this new growth sprouting out from this guy would be a sucker. So what I could do is clip this off, take off a couple of these leaves, and take 3 or 4 weeks in some water to root it and create a whole new plant. I'm not entirely sure if it drops seeds or not, but if it's suckering, I'm not sure that it needs to. It's so pretty, and I'm just loving the aroma. So just for a little botanical information, when you look at a flower like this, it's actually one flower that's a combination of many flowers growing along a central axis. And I learned that the botanical term for this is called a raceme, where you have that central axis running down, and that it's kind of indeterminate in that the older flowers start sort of closer to the top, and as the axis grows down, or in some cases I guess grows up, the flowers grow along it. And so what you end up with is, if you can see here, these a little short buddy, and then you also get these long beautiful flowers right here. The smell is a little faint, but when these first opened up and when these first came in, the smell was so beautiful. And I learned that they flower in May, and I'm just loving it. I had never, like I said, I never really paid a lot of attention to these, but isn't that the case with most plants? That you don't really pay a lot of attention to them until you start looking. And when you do, and if you do some study, you find that they're doing fascinating things, really, really cool stuff. So what I was talking about with the suckering, you can kind of see here that this guy is growing sort of a shoot off of this limb, and you get almost what looks like a brand new plant. It basically is. Suckering is used, I think, also by red raspberry and by tomatoes. And somewhere down the line, somewhere this summer, I'll show you how you can take the sucker growths from tomatoes and grow roots and get a whole other tomato plant. So if you go out to the store and you buy something that can sucker, like a Sweetspire or like a tomato, you can basically propagate and get more plants over and over and over and over again for free. And I think that's kind of what's going on here. As you can see, this has turned into quite a little cluster of Sweetspire, which is very nice for us. Hey, y'all like my hat? It's the day, y'all. So also, what's it being May, and something we don't see a whole lot of around here is what's called Kalmia latifolia, which means broad-leafed mountain laurel. Now look at that. I'm just a little bit late to include this one. As you can see, some of it is starting to brown as the flowers just grow and grow and grow, and some of them are dying off as new ones are coming in. But look at the color on these. Isn't that just so nice with that little blush of red right there on the inside of those petals? They are so pretty. And I even like, if you can see back here, I really like the way that the flower looks even before it opens up. I think it looks like a dollop of icing from one of those nozzled piping bags is such a pretty plant. It doesn't have much of an aroma, but it sure is nice to look at. Apparently this is a native to this land, and it's just not something that, like I said, it's just not something you see often around here. I think they may be a little more abundant up in North Carolina. But we've got that one. We've got our Sweetspire friends, which I'm all about right now. And we've got this guy over here. So there are, I guess, a number of varieties of mountain laurel. And this one is much more that pink. Yeah, look at that. And I don't know yet what this kind of clustery flower growth is, where it sort of opens up. It almost looks like hydrangea or something, where it's sort of these dense clusters of many flowers. And so if you look at one flower, it's actually just a cluster of 2 dozen, 3 dozen flowers. But this is the mountain laurel, such a pretty plant. And I don't think it takes a whole lot of care. I think you can just kind of put it in the ground, and as long as it's got a little bit of sun and some shade, that it just does its thing. What I love is that this is a shrub, and yet it's got such a strong central sort of shoot here that makes it almost look like a small tree. Really very pretty. And this one, I don't think we've even really trimmed it or done anything with it, and it's grown, as you can see, almost as tall as I am. And that each year it just gets more and more full. It sort of bushes out, and it has all those gorgeous flowers growing all over it. Really love these plants. So these are the things I'm learning, and I'll get back to you at some point with some more of these botanical terms, because that is just a whole world in itself. If you start to really look around the world, there's a lot to discover, and then you discover that a lot of people have spent their lives discovering and naming and organizing a lot of these things so that we could be able to communicate. Hence the Latin names. I'm not necessarily crazy about learning Latin, but the reason we use Latin is because it's a dead language and it won't evolve. It won't change. So we can all agree you should be able to talk about plants with people who speak other languages if you can all agree on the Latin terminology, which is just a very smart way to do things. I got a number of things going on today. I'm gonna put some wild onions in. I may do a video about that. I think I'm gonna pot a tomato plant. One of our dogs got in and chewed the heck out of one of our other tomatoes. And I'm gonna cut some limbs, just not a lot, but just a couple small limbs out of some of these trees here. I don't know if you can see it, but out of some of these trees that are just blocking that front porch steps, because I have some potted plants that I want to get some afternoon sun. So what I'm trying to do is just cut down a few select branches and make sure that I know where the afternoon sun is trying to hit our front steps. And then I can put potted plants down there and they'll get a nice shot of afternoon sun. That's the thing about these broadleaf trees. They are so beautiful. And that in the wintertime you can see for miles because there's nothing obstructing your vision. But with all these broadleaves, they just end up creating this canopy. It's just so beautiful. What that means though is that we don't get a whole lot of sun down here on the ground. So if you want to get sun on your potted plants or on certain spots in your yard, you're gonna have to go up with either a pole saw or loppers or something and just take down select branches. That could also create a really interesting, I don't want to say design, but pattern or growth. You can sort of work on the growth habits of these trees so that they can all grow together as you start to recognize how some trees are pushing others out. It's a form of competition and cooperation, right? I mean, look at just the nature of this redbud and the way that it wants to split and grow and branch and reach out into the street to get that extra sun that some of these other trees aren't able to get. So I'm just loving it. Really, really good day. Hope you're having a good day too.